what is the true essence of black girl magic? Each week, I sit down for a deep and meaningful conversation with some of Africa's most inspiring women and hear their stories of love, loss, and second chances. My name is Dawn Faith. Join me on this journey of discovery. Don't you ever give up, don't you ever give up. God hears the whisper of your heart. When she first told me what she does for a living, I knew she had a solid brain under all that hair. Khulile Vilakazi Ofosu is a senior investigations manager looking after Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and India for Microsoft's Financial Integrity Unit. That's a mouthful, and no, I don't know what it means either, but I do know it's freaking impressive. After all, Microsoft isn't just going to hire any old person to work at Microsoft. I sat down with this career-driven woman in her beautiful home, not to chat about the joys of controls or auditing, but rather the challenges of her journey into motherhood. How she's dealt with postnatal depression, something so many of us experience but so few discuss, and what it took to turn her pain into a black hair empire. This is my deep and meaningful conversation with Khulile Vilakazi Ofosu. Do you know what I still find strange? That we've just only known each other for less than a week.
Tell me about it.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
It's good. Okay. So one of the things that we spoke about on the phone was your journey to the hair product, to Be Bounce. And I found that very fascinating. I think when I got off the phone with my husband, I said, I have to talk to Khulile. I have to talk to Khulile to be on the show, because I thought your story was so awesome. But I also just loved the bravery and the courage for you to immediately share something that deep with me.
Thank you.
What was your journey to motherhood?
Jeez, it hasn't been an easy one, hey. Yeah. I think earlier on in my childhood, I think I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I made a decision that I didn't want to have a child out of wedlock. Yeah. Right.
And why, if I may ask?
Well, it's because my mom had me when she was 16.
Wow.
And I was born in August, and then 4 months later she had to go back to school.
Wow.
And kudos to my grandmother for allowing her to do that.
Yeah.
So I was brought up by my great-grandmother.
Wow.
And when my great-grandmother died, I was, I think, 7 years old.
Yeah.
My grandmother then continued on that, raising me.
Because your mom was still back at school.
Mom had gotten married after that and all that.
What a similar journey.
I think, being raised by my grandmother, my great-grandmother, they did the best that they could.
Yeah.
I was happy. It was a happy childhood.
Yeah.
I can't complain, but I still yearned for that mother and father type of family environment, right?
Yeah.
And when my friends at school would talk about, my dad this, my mom this, whatever, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And so, from an early age, I thought, you know what, I will not have a child before I get married, yeah? But then I think I left it too very late. I got married quite late as well. I got married at 35.
Wow.
And I think one always assumes that when you're ready, everything, the universe, everything will just fall into place.
Yeah.
And with me, it wasn't the case.
Okay.
Firstly, you think your body will sort of,
naturally get it done.
Yes, get it done. And then also you and your partner, you assume that you'll be on the same
ready at the same time,
right?
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
Yeah. So for me, it was a bit of both, and out of, my husband is a very private person, so out of respect for him, I won't really go into the challenges, into actually conceiving and all that. But it was a very challenging period. Yeah. At some point, I actually thought, well, this is not in the cards for me, right?
No, yeah.
And that's when, as a woman,
what did that feel like for you? Because I know, especially as black women, we're geared for marriage, and you trained. Yeah. There's an expectation that you'll be a good wife.
Yep.
And then the next thing is you're going to bear kids. And then the other unspoken pressure is that you're going to give birth to a son.
Exactly.
So that your husband's name continues. How did that process, that trying to have a baby, fit for you? I know you can't speak about your husband, but for you personally, what was it like?
Yeah. I felt a bit of pressure. I've got a wonderful in-laws. My in-laws are wonderful people.
Great.
So I didn't get that much from their side. I mean, they were always wishing, obviously, that, we would have a baby and all that. My mom was very, very categorically clear that she wanted a granddaughter or a grandson. So yes, and also just for me, because I'm that type of person that, okay, I don't procrastinate. When I've decided on something, I do
Go ahead, yeah.
So that's another point that I thought, okay, once I've decided, so everything will just happen, and it didn't. And it was such a, thinking back now, I actually wonder how I got through it.
Wow.
But I think my faith actually pulled me through that type of period.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest lesson for me going through those challenges was that we think, yes, we're Christians, right? But when we are supposed to have faith, that's where our faith wavers, right?
Yeah.
And then you think, oh God, I've been so good.
Why is this happening to me?
Or why is it not happening?
Yeah.
Why would you punish me and stuff like that?
Yeah. So quick to think it's punishment, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I find that as Christians as well, we tend to think when we do good things, we're sort of creating a favor bank with God, right?
Girl.
So the first thing you think, oh, but I've been so good, I do this, I started a foundation.
Gandhi, what do you want me to do?
You know what you want me to do? I'm good to people.
All I want is just a baby.
You know,
you know how many people for pregnant and we're like, and I'm here and I can provide for
without
baby.
trying.
Yin manj.
Exactly. So I mean, we sought help. And there was a point during that journey where I felt, okay, you know what? I've done all that Khulile can do.
Yeah.
And I think it was just about time for me to accept that if God has not decided it's your time, it just won't happen. And I always believe that when you're going through challenges, God is trying to shape a certain character in you, or a certain I don't know, the English word is just you. Exactly. And for me, I think two things. One was impatience. I'm very, very impatient. As I say, I don't procrastinate. When I've decided on something, I do it. So, and also just that God doesn't work on our own timetable. Okay? Yeah. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And I grappled with that, and I thought, he's given me this mind and whatever, we can do our own interventions, and it just didn't. And I remember very well, actually that's the day that I conceived.
Wow.
I remember very well, we had gone through, my husband and I had gone through therapy that day, and I went to visit a friend of mine. I remember sitting in her couch, and she actually prayed for me that day, and she fell pregnant, actually not trying. So for her, one of my best friends, she actually felt so bad for me that she is wanting this so much, and it's not happening. And I sort of come to a point where I was like, okay, it's okay. You know what? My husband and I are going to adopt, and that's why I started a foundation and deliberately focused on foundational stages. The foundation is called Uhambo Africa. So I was like, you know what? This is the new plan. This is not happening. And at that point, I remember very well where I was sitting at her house and where she was sitting, and where I said, you know what, God, you win.
Wow.
You win.
It's a whole surrender, yeah? When you let go.
Absolutely.
And I just
I felt it within, like you say, okay,
fine.
And I can't describe the feeling to you, but that is, I remember very well where I said, you know what, nothing I can humanly do.
It's out of my hands.
Right. So, and she actually prayed for me, and I was like, I surrender. And we actually sang the I surrender. Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So, and then I know very well that that's the day that I conceived, because I was on a flight the next day for 2 weeks.
Coming up.
People say, oh, the minute they are put into your chest,
you can fall in love.
And,
and
for me, nope.
No, come on.
I knew I loved her. I knew I loved her. I knew she was mine. I knew it was
everything you wanted.
Everything that
you prayed for.
She was perfect. But I felt so disappointed.
And then later.
For me, I think the problem started when I found out that I was pregnant. My husband and I were having a problem, and in fact we separated at that time.
While it's true that postnatal depression is made worse by poverty and lack of resources, even those who are relatively well off can still struggle. This was certainly the case for me, and it was also true for Khulile. So, if so many of us experience trials as we transition into motherhood, why are so few of us willing to talk about it? To her great credit, Khulile agreed to share openly about her own journey.
Yeah. And then now you're pregnant.
Now
and
I'm
you're
pregnant.
like, oh, glowing, and you're having the best pregnancy because the very thing you wanted has come to pass, right?
Absolutely not.
No.
Actually, the opposite.
Shut the gate.
And everybody says that, oh, you love pregnancy, you'll be glowing, and this.
Yeah. Can I tell you a non-secret? I hated it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I did it twice.
Really?
And both times, I was like, nah, nobody got time for this. Like,
it was the worst period. But also, I felt so alone because I felt I couldn't share it.
Because everyone else is like,
I love my pregnancy, you glowing.
Oh my goodness, my baby is kicking. I couldn't find a single position to sleep. I'd be like,
thank you. You feel me. You know exactly. But I think the pressure as well for you, and I think not from other people as well, from myself, to say, you know what, I finally have this.
This is what you prayed for. This is what you prayed for.
You know?
Yeah.
I should be grateful.
Yeah.
And I would have these conversations with God to say, you know my heart, you know I'm grateful.
Yeah, but this is
just
hard.
so hard. You know? And I ended up being on bed rest for 4 months of the pregnancy. A very, very, very lonely and depressing time, to be honest. I couldn't wait to meet my little angel. And then towards the end of my pregnancy, I actually used to fake
labor.
Exactly, labor.
Get her
I'll go to my doctor and I'm like, no, I think
I'm in labor.
Like, no, Khulile. No.
There's still time.
Yeah, so... Yeah, that was my journey. So my baby came again. So we were each other's support system, really, and we continue to be that.
Great.
You know, and at least she understood the journey. She understood again. You know, now you're supposed to breastfeed. Milk doesn't come, and I'm thinking, what the?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Did you at any point have someone like talk you through what was happening? Because I think for me, so I had, what is it called, postnatal depression.
Yeah.
So I had a mild version of it, and I didn't realize that I was going through it until I was at my GP. And then the more she asked me questions, then the more it became very clear that I wasn't happy. Do you know what I mean? For me, it was more about being lonely.
People say, oh, the minute they are put into your chest, you fall in love. And, you know, and for me, nope.
No, come on.
No, I knew I loved her.
Yeah.
I knew I loved her. I knew she was mine. I knew it was...
Everything you wanted.
Everything she was
you prayed for.
She was perfect.
Yeah.
But I felt so disappointed that I did not immediately have that wow, which everybody talks about. And then I thought, am I such a bad person?
Oh, no.
You know, what, you know.
What is this? Do you feel that yours was diagnosed at any given point?
So mine wasn't, but I knew because I mean, we're family of readers.
Okay.
And also the 4 months in bed actually helped me to read a lot about what could be, what could not be, and whatever.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going through something, but it wasn't something that I publicly declared.
Okay.
You know? And also I felt like my husband is very much not a like a PT type person or whatever. He's like, okay, there's a problem, it needs to be solved, you know. But I'm like, so what do we do? I don't want you to solve it. Well, I don't know if I want you to solve it.
How
you know,
do
also with the hormones and whatever.
Yeah.
But what exactly is it? But I don't know. But how can you not be feeling? You know, so it was just that struggle, and then I then chose not to share.
Okay, even with him.
Yeah, because I was like,
he's going to jump into solutions.
Yes, I can't understand it myself.
Yeah.
How can I
break it down for you?
For somebody else, right? Yeah, the struggles with breastfeeding at 4 days. Aisha decided she doesn't want breast milk.
Wow.
Then I then we had to start her on bottom. Yes, and she would just drink just that much. If the book says 150 ml, she would just have 60. And I always felt like she just wanted me to always be on my feet, you know, not be comfortable. I'm going to challenge you. And that was like, even my sister, Shoni, she says, you know, Khulile, you are finding this journey so difficult because you are used to doing things your own way and decide,
things going by the book.
But now there's somebody, and my daughter takes after me and my husband.
Wow.
She's very strong-willed, and from day 4, she showed me that she was like that.
This is who I am. This is what I want.
Exactly. Yeah. So that whole year, really, her first year.
Yeah.
I loved her, and then I grew to love her, obviously. And
I like
she's,
that. You grew to love
absolutely.
her.
I mean, it happened.
People would find that so strange, as if it doesn't happen. For a mum to say, "I grew to love." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we look down upon
people that admit that.
Like there's something wrong. Yet stats indicate how many women actually struggle the journey into motherhood and how much it can be a lonely journey into it. Do you know what I mean? From the time you conceive to having the baby to taking the baby home to raising teenagers. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just I think sometimes we have this perception that because it's a natural thing,
you should
naturally have the instinct. Do you know what I mean?
It just doesn't happen. And again, it wasn't that I didn't love her.
Yeah.
It was, I think the way that I explain it is I fell in love with her. I loved her.
But the process of falling
in love,
like
and then really experiencing that bond.
I like that.
It grew over time. Probably a couple of weeks, but it did not happen immediately.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell anyone how I felt because people would think that what kind of a mother is she to not to love her own son.
Out of attitude, out of temper, I'll just be agitated unnecessarily.
I just hated him. I didn't want him. I didn't even name him. I didn't give him a name.
People think maybe you are crazy or something wrong.
I
had so many headaches,
frustrations.
When you cry,
I felt like this is not what I expected.
It was in September 2010 when I found that I was expecting, and I was very happy and excited.
With my second baby, I was so devastated because I didn't expect that I would be pregnant so soon because my son was just a year. And I discovered that I was pregnant with my second baby.
For me, I think the problem started when I found out that I was pregnant. My husband and I were having a problem, and in fact, we separated at that time.
Then I told my hubby that he just kept quiet, and I was so angry and so frustrated with him for not being excited.
When I went into labor, my husband wasn't there. He had traveled, and I had wanted him to be there, so I think that was the downfall of it.
I spent, I think, about a couple of days with my son. Everything was normal at that time. But after 2 days, that's when I started feeling depressed.
I noticed something was amiss because I would just ignore the baby when the baby is crying.
I couldn't eat. I felt tired, bored, didn't love my baby. Sometimes I would feel like running away.
I didn't even change his clothes, or when his diaper was wet, I just didn't want him. I just didn't want to touch him.
I phoned my mom. I said, "Mom, I am losing it. This baby is driving me nuts." He just cries and cries and cries and cries and cries.
My hubby was very supportive, was not very supportive. I felt so alone and so stressed.
My mom said, "That's what you used to do when you were a baby."
He was hungry. I remember it was around 11 p.m. He started crying. I didn't touch him. In fact, I just stood up and I locked myself in the bathroom.
He doesn't want to sleep. He's constantly breastfeeding. I am tired. I didn't know what to do.
I think I came out of the bathroom at around 5 a.m. The baby was still crying. I remember some other time I thought of taking red killer to kill myself because I just didn't want the baby.
After my son was 6 months old, I went to see my GP. It was getting too much for me.
I told my mom how I felt, and she was there for me then.
I didn't talk to anybody. I just prayed. I think I talked to my God.
All they said, I had PND, and I needed to see a psychologist, a shrink that is.
My husband came back, and then my best friend came to stay at home with me for some time. I then got a lot of time to sleep.
So my advice to other women who are having this depression is talk to someone.
Talk to your husband, to your partner, to your spouse about it, and tell them how you feel.
Love yourself, eat good food, meditate, take walks.
Be around people. Don't be alone.
If you're not managing with the baby alone, find a relative, find a friend. Talk to your husband, to your partner, to your spouse about it, and tell them how you feel.
Laugh a lot, exercise, and do the things that make you feel good.
Also, don't forget to have a me time. Don't forget that you're a person as an individual. You're yourself. You need to have time to yourself again.
Right now, when I think about it, I feel guilt sometimes. Because my son would cry. But after that, well, things started happening, and now I love him so much.
Coming up.
So all that anxiety, emotional turmoil and whatever. And of course my hair fell even more. Right?
Because the stress is making it worse.
It's making it worse. I'm not happy with the environment. Wow. I'm not making friends.
Wow.
I'm stuck with this lovely baby who I love.
Maternal mental health is a particular problem, and it's worse in South Africa than in many places. In Soweto, an estimated 16.4 struggle with depression after giving birth, whilst in Khulile, that number is more like 39%, and in rural KwaZulu-Natal, it's a whopping 47%. I don't know about you, but these figures blew me away.
3 months later, I had this big afro.
Yes. Like the one you've hooked me up with.
Yes, like the one that I'm wearing now.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, it all falls.
Oh no,
fell off.
Yeah, wow.
And then that's where I had to admit the journey, then trying to understand, because you pride yourself with your crown,
with the way
right?
You look, yeah.
Yeah, and I've always been, like, not always, but I mean, half my life I've been natural.
Yeah.
Right, so it's something that I take pride in, and I take care of my hair, and people that know me would say, oh, when are your hair is always growing, it's nice and whatever. That's why even now people are like, oh, Khulile, you always have great hair. They can't see that it's bounce.
Yeah. You're bouncing some.
I'm bouncing some. So
the hair fell off.
The hair fell off.
Wow.
And then that period, and then we had to move as well. My husband started a new business, went on his own actually. So we had to move to Cape Town for a period of time.
So now the emotional turmoil is showing itself externally. Do you know what I mean? And so not only is it about you trying to hide it and deal with it by yourself, but there are now ramifications on the external bit through your hair falling off.
Exactly,
wow.
Exactly. And then I didn't understand. And then again, people don't share that. They call it postpartum, shedding, whatever. Yeah. They don't share. So when it happened to me, I was like, what
you get thrown off.
Happening?
Yeah.
And then when we moved to Cape Town, a very nice area that we lived in, but it was more of a holiday destination than family orientated. Yeah. And we're moving. Aisha is 11 years old. 11 months old. Yeah. And that's the time where she needs to be running around. She needs space and all that. And I work from home.
Yeah.
So in this 2-bedroom apartment, not to sound ungrateful, it was a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But
it's not meeting the needs.
It's not meeting the needs.
Yeah.
So I wake up in this room. I shower, I work in this room.
Wow.
I have to close the door to make sure that Aisha is not aware that I'm working here, because
then
there's
a point of separation.
Yeah. I can hear her laughing, giggling and whatever.
Yeah.
And then also there's that pressure to say, okay, my work is more conference calls and video conferencing. I'm thinking, okay, I hope she's sleeping at this time when I have this meeting. So all that anxiety, emotional turmoil and whatever. And of course my hair fell even more.
Because the stress is making it worse.
It's making it worse. I'm not happy with the environment. I'm not making friends. I'm stuck with this lovely baby who I love.
But it is a responsibility and a burden at the moment,
I'm feeling my life being sucked out of me.
Wow.
I'm feeling...
What do you do with that?
I don't know. I don't know how many conversations I had with the men above to say, what is happening
now?
to me?
This is not the dream.
This is not the dream.
I used to say I got duped.
Yeah. This is not the dream.
I bought into, I'm going to fall pregnant, I'm going to be in stilettos till the day I give birth. In fact, I'm going to give birth in stilettos, yeah. And I'm immediately going to shed the weight. And I'm not going to be, my mom, I'm 35 years old. She had me in 1982. Till this very day, when you ask my mama why she got a big A, she says, I gave birth to Dawn. You destroyed my body, you know? And I was determined that, no, there wasn't going to be this thing about my children destroying my body, but the polar opposite, you know?
Putting pressure on yourself.
Yeah, because then I was like, no, this is not the life. And so it is also part of the things that we think, you know, that motherhood is going to look like, the Perfect Picture magazine. And I think also because our parents did such a brilliant job. It looks so. I always say I find it hard to complain about motherhood when my grandmother raised 9 children. Wait for it, by herself.
Wow.
Because my granddad passed away when my mum was in grade 3. So what's that? 8, 9 years old. It's a catch-22 because she obviously was able to survive and work within her means, and I still have the right to complain about where I am. So it's just always trying to find that balance. And I think one of the smartest things and the things I loved about what you said was finding that help and finding the space to be able to talk to someone about that. So is that then when you know, you figured, okay, now your crown
is gone. Let me bring my own. Let me create my own crown.
You go, girl. Yeah.
So I would sit online for hours and hours because I didn't want something that looked very fake when somebody looks at me, you know. So, but I had never seen this type of curl being done in South Africa.
Okay.
So that's when I bumped into my partner online, Caroline. She's such a wonderful person. I mean, honestly, she's God sent. So I ordered a wig from her. It came. And she'll tell you that I was a very difficult customer. So I was very, very particular about my things. So it came. I loved the hair. But I was like, no, Caroline, let's do this differently. Let's do that, let's do that. So, she fixed my wig. It came. And I always say, God brings people in your life at the right time. So she calls me. She says, you know, Khulile, I've got such a challenge. You know I don't know you, but I feel like I know you. You know, so I helped her through that challenge. And then something that night after I spoke to her with her challenges, I was like, you know what, this is a woman, she's lovely, she's put up with my nonsense, you know, let me just offer a hand of friendship. So I call her out, I'm like, Caroline, you know, if you need somebody, an interim locally to send your stuff to, please feel free to send it to me. And God knows I did not have any business. I've never thought I was a business person.
Wow.
Let's start there. I've never ever thought I had any creative bone in my body. So then I say that and she's like, wow, Khulile, blah blah blah. And then, you know, she comes back and says, would you be interested in a partnership? So that's how Bounce was born.
Do you feel that, like the way your mom or your great-grandmother or your grandmother raised you has had an impact in how you raise your daughter now and how you see her? And I think beyond that, what would you say? You know, I'm very interested. Like, I firmly believe that women and the way we raise our kids, and especially raise our daughters, that we have the capacity and the ability to completely change our world.
Absolutely.
You know, in what I instill in my son and who I raise him to be, he then grows up to be a man that plays a critical role for better or worse in society.
Absolutely.
So for you, when you look at how you were raised, what are the key things that you feel, if you can get your daughter to understand this and that, you would have accomplished, if there's a graduation ceremony for motherhood, like you've done well? What are those things for you?
Kindness.
Okay.
Treating everybody with respect. Doesn't matter from a cleaner to a CEO of a company, because that's how I am, that's how I treat people. So if there is one thing, honestly, that I would like her, it's just to be kind to people and be humble.
Wow.
That's the one thing. But then you touched on with the way that I was raised. It's a bit of good and bad in terms of how I then raised Aisha. The good part, more on, you know, there's a mother and a father, and my husband is very hands-on.
Great.
Very, very hands-on. And also in terms of stimulating her intellectually.
Wow.
I always felt, or still feel, and I say this to my mom, I think God gave me a brilliant brain.
Yeah.
It just needed to be developed.
Okay.
Right? And with all the reading and whatever, they do tell you that that period is between birth and 5 years old,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So as I said, good and bad. So from day one, we would read to Aisha.
Great.
From day one, we didn't speak baby language.
Yeah,
as a
that's what we
result,
did, yeah.
I mean, her
language,
is just
came in
you know,
early.
I mean, yeah, she turns 3 next week.
Yeah.
And she speaks like you and I.
Wow.
Really, and the ability to catch on languages and whatever. So my husband and I has really concentrated very much on that.
Yeah.
Which can go a little bit overboard. Have you ever heard of a 2-year-old that goes to a maths class?
No.
My husband had his way, he would probably be in some science Olympiad.
Already.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but I think also that it's us pushing that more me, because I really do feel I've got this period to make her the best that she can be in terms of stimulating her intellectually, right? I do tend to overcompensate in terms of just that motherly love and her knowing that she's loved.
Yeah,
right? Because I never had that.
I feel you.
I never had that. I was obviously cared for and not ill-treated and stuff like that. And as I said, my mom...
But it's a different thing to know that you are wanted.
You know, even
and
my
you're
mom,
loved.
even you go to kiss her, she'll be like, hi, Suga, you know, whatever. But obviously in an affectionate way, right?
Yeah.
But I give 120 kisses a day. I tell her I love her. I
like that.
Yeah, and then I sort of, I do have a no, but my no is not very fair sometimes. So yeah.
She can get away with things.
She gets away with a lot.
I can completely relate with that.
And just to be comfortable in her own skin, hey.
That's good.
Really. And that is why, actually, that's the reason why I actually decided to do
Yes.
And
Buse, is that her name, right?
That's her name. So,
hi, darling. Hi, Buse.
Isn't she pretty? She's an African princess, and the hair looks exactly like yours, eh?
I know.
Coming up.
Let's just find a manufacturer that can do a black doll.
Wow.
And that was another struggle.
Serious.
We couldn't find a manufacturer
who was willing.
Nope. People, they were telling, they would reject us straight, saying, no, we don't do black dolls. They're ugly. They don't sell.
If we have to return Winnie, why don't we get something that I actually want? Like a sword or a bear trap.
Or a doll that you can relate to.
Hello. Hi. We'd like to make an exchange. Oh, Winnie. Oh, well, that's a surprise. She's our best-selling girl story doll. She invented the tourniquet. Oh, wow. But you know what? No worries. We have tons of other dolls for you to choose from.
Oh. Like right here?
We have Cassandra. She's a pioneer woman.
We're actually looking for a doll that's, like...
Has hands?
Oh,
all our dolls have hands. Well, except for a few of our differently abled dolls.
Uh-huh. So, you have dozens of disabled...
Differently abled.
Fine. Differently abled. And hundreds of amazingly successful white dolls, but only 2 black dolls.
African American.
Uh-huh.
Where Aisha would come back from school, I've taken care of her hair. Her hair is very long. It's all natural and all that. And she's like, no, mommy, don't do the short hair. So plaiting like
the shorter braids.
She wants braids because she can shake it. You know, she wants to shake it, or she will ask for a peg to pinch her nose because her nose is the flattest you've ever seen. It's a typical Ghanaian nose.
Oh, baby.
So I was like, no. I mean, she's got beautiful hair. Sometimes when I do exactly when I do it, I'm thinking, oh, let me put some on my hair. So those were the little things, and I would have this conversation with Caroline because Caroline spoils her. My partner really, she spoils her, and so I would have this conversation. I'm like, this is worrying me about Aisha and whatever. I mean, she's so beautiful and whatever. And I went around looking for black dolls, with the same Afro texture,
so that she can see herself and see
them. And be happy and know from a young age that, you know what, I'm proud of my crown. It might not be flowy,
Like, you wish you had my hair. That's what I always say. You know what? You can say whatever you want about this hair. But on any given day, I braid it, I flat iron it.
Yep.
You wish you could be like, you know what I mean? And it's so hard to be able to raise them kids with that level of self-pride.
Pride, exactly. So that's how Buhle was born. So Karen was like, we really know about hair now, right?
Yeah.
Let's just find a manufacturer that can do a black doll.
Wow.
And that was another struggle.
Serious.
We couldn't find a manufacturer prepared
who was willing.
Nope. People, they were telling, they would reject us straight, saying, no, we don't do black dolls. They're ugly. They, they don't sell. And and we had to really make a decision whether are we doing this for money or are we creating a legacy for our kids.
I like that.
And then we went with the latter. And I always believe that money will follow. We do want money. That's why we
need
right?
it, yeah.
Absolutely. But we really, the decision was taken more on, we want to challenge the norm. We want our kids to grow up being comfortable in their own skin, knowing that their hair is there.
They're perfect really, just the way they are.
Perfect.
Can you imagine a 2- or 3-year-old struggling with their identity?
Hey?
Like what then? Like what comes after that?
After that, the teens. When she reaches her teens,
you know
what issues will we be dealing with? So that's how Buhle was born, with her flat nose, a big forehead, and she's still a princess. She's still a princess.
I do. I like the incorporation, like of the little glossy,
Yeah.
So she's still, what does it go? Let it go.
Yes, Frozen.
Yeah, so she's still letting it go, but with her African prince.
Yeah. And Aisha would say, oh no, you're Princess Aisha from Ghana. No, I'm Frozen. I'm Princess Hannah. I'm Princess. There's nothing wrong with that, but not so much that the child.
You lose yourself.
Exactly. So hopefully now she'll say I'm Princess Buhle, or something like that. I don't know.
I think it's so needed,
Thank you.
I imagine like what. How else do you see yourself unless the world shows you also?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And it is that to her, and I think she's absolutely stunning.
And up till now, the world has shown our kids that they are Frozen, they are Barbie.
And you're right, and there's nothing wrong with that because there are kids that are Frozen and there are kids that are Barbie, but there's also kids who are Buhle.
Exactly.
And that's how we get to a space where we have all these identity crises about who we are and being able to love ourselves, our lovely behind exactly the way they shaped. Like I used to, in high school, I have high cheekbones. Yeah. E-com, or they call them
yes.
In high school, it was such a thing because then when I smile, my eyes closed. So this friend of mine in Bali, she had high cheekbones and so we formed this e-com club.
That's crazy.
And then we had our thing when we would laugh, so people could still see our eyes. We'd be like,
I'm like that. Mine disappear as well.
So we'd be like, this is all the people from Income Club. Because and we would turn it into a joke, but it wasn't because people, would say nasty things about cheese. When you smile, you better not smile. Because when you smile, your eyes
disappear.
Do you know what I mean? And it's funny, but it's not. But that's who I am. Like, what do I do then? Do I go have surgery to remove my commas?
You love yourself the way that you are.
And it's insane because now that I'm older, it's just like actually, if you ask me what are the things that I love most about myself, my personality is one, and then physically, it is my high cheekbones and my nose. Girl, you wish your eyes would close when you're smiling. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's a great attitude, and that's what we want to instill in our kids.
That's fantastic.
But just on that as well, it is so entrenched in us as black people that something else is much better than what we are.
I mean, I don't know what the final solution is. I don't know if you have any idea what is it that we could do to curb it, to change the tide around this black beauty and self-acceptance.
I think it just starts in the families. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with people that still like their weaves and relaxing and stuff like that, right? As long as you are not trying to change who you are.
That's good.
It's just an external thing, and you prefer your hair silky or whatever. As long as it's not how you define your whole being to be, right? So there's absolutely nothing wrong with sisters that are still liking their weaves and all that. But it's more of an inner thing rather than an outer thing.
And it doesn't begin to define you because other small things like you can't go swimming, and so there's like you can't. You can't be in the swimming club because your hair ain't going for that. You can't go out nowhere when it's raining. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because it is a thing. It is, I think, hair and physical appearance is something to be loved, of course.
Yes, but not
to a certain extent that it begins to limit you. Because then I think we've lost the whole plot about it. So that's why I really was very interested and fascinated about, obviously, the conversation for us about motherhood and mother-daughter relationships and the transferal, not of spirits, but of those emotional ways and the way we think about who we are as women, and specifically as black women, and what that looks like as we pass it on to our kids, and what your daughter is going to pass on
to her kids.
Do you know what I mean? And it seems like, oh, that's too deep, but it is. Do you know, but it has ramifications for this generation.
Yeah, and if we don't do it now, if you don't start now, well,
you can't tell her at 13.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You've lost 13 years of actually investing in her.
Absolutely. And also, there's so much outside influence. That's why Aisha is only allowed 1 hour of TV a week.
Wow.
1 hour. And people are like, oh, well, good luck with that, but we've been very, very, very strict.
Wow.
1 hour, that's it.
Wow.
So we try and limit those. I mean, she does also, I think, about 2 hours of iPad.
The games.
But it's more books, playing outside, interacting with other kids. But also, if we as parents do not instill those values in the house, there's so many other people that would be ready to do that, and outside TV and all that. So we really try, and I think she is a kind. Like yesterday, one of her school classmates fell, and she went and she's like, oh, sorry, and she went and picked a flower. This is for you, okay? Are you going to be happy now? Are you happy now? So I can see that, and I really hope she doesn't lose it. I really hope she doesn't lose it. So if there is one thing that I really hope I can, if I go today,
that would be the thing you want to leave her with.
Hopefully not, God. But if I go today, I honestly, if she grows up to a proud person in herself, humble person in how she interacts with other people, how kind person in terms of taking care of the next person, I would have.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
My job on it.
Thank you so much for having a conversation with me. This was lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, this is lovely. Thank you for welcoming us to your lovely home.
You're welcome.
That's
You're welcome.
Stunning.
You truly can make lemonade out of the lemons life gives you. Postnatal and antenatal depression is nothing to be ashamed of. It is normal and happens to many of us. If this is something you are struggling with, please do seek help and talk to those around you. Khulile, I applaud your bravery. Thank you for speaking so candidly about a subject most of us shy away from. It is my sincere belief that many sisters will be helped through the courage you have displayed. We've reached the end of our conversation for today, folks. Join me again next week when we have another deep and meaningful conversation. Stay blessed.